It is game day in Cleveland. He is Daryl Ryder. I'm Andy Baskin. We are brought to you by our good friends at Smiley One and Bryant, Northeast Ohio's premier heating and cooling services. All right, Daryl, we are one day away from that big win over Jacksonville. We should talk a little bit about the fallout from the game. What are we talking about on the morning after, much like the Poseidon Adventure? Although this wasn't the Poseidon Adventure. This was something spectacular. It was more fun.
Yeah, except for, unfortunately, the Browns lost yet another player for the season. DeJuan Jones suffered a knee injury during practice last Thursday. He's going to require surgery, so he is done for the year, and you can add him now to a very lengthy list. I don't know. Do we have time on this podcast to read off the names of the dearly departed for the 2023 NFL season?
Should we do that like the award shows, like at the end of the show and play sappy music?
In memoriam.
Yeah, but they're not dead, so I didn't want to say that.
In memoriam 2023, we'll see you next year.
See you next year. That's better.
I mean, so, Wyatt Teller talked about how he's, really, confident in James Hudson being able to step in. And so now they're on their third right tackle because remember, Jack Conklin, they lost him in week 1. Jedrick Wills is still on injured reserve. And, we'll get an update maybe later this week as far as where he's at injury wise. But yeah, just another Monday and another player that they lost for the season. And, I think I'd be remiss if we didn't acknowledge just the vast development that Jones made in such a short amount of time, from rookie minicamp all the way up to training camp, and then being basically thrown into the fire and quite frankly, being, I would argue, the best offensive lineman of this rookie class. I think he's been that good for the Browns. So this is a big loss. I mean, he's a big boy, you know what I mean? But this really is a big loss, no pun intended, for this offensive line.
So let me ask you this. Is this a chance for Justin Murray, the tackle from Cincinnati, who's been sitting on the practice squad, or even Alex Leatherwood to have the opportunity to step up, the former first-round pick?
Well, Leatherwood's had, there's been some times where we're like, oh, yeah, they're going to go with Alex Leatherwood, and then they don't go with Alex Leatherwood. So not real
like sure. The media is saying that, or you're getting that feeling from the Browns?
No, we've been saying it for weeks, right? Oh,
yeah,
it's Alex, and there's been no movement. They've elevated other offensive linemen from the practice squad and not him. So I would say that no, Leatherwood would not be a consideration, that they would have other linemen in front of them, just because that's how they've operated this year, right? When it comes,
but it is next man up, right? I hear that every practice.
Well, you have to hear it because that's literally what it's been. I mean, think about what they've lost this year, Andy. They've lost Jakeem Grant, their primary returner. They lost Conklin. We mentioned him
in the first play of the last exhibition game, right?
Yeah. Nick Chubb, Jacob Phillips, Rodney McLeod, Deshaun Watson for the season. They're waiting to find out what's going on with Grant Delpit after he suffered a groin injury against the Jaguars. He also signed a 3-year, $36 million contract extension, so good for him. And a good job by Andrew Berry keeping one of his draft picks, 2020 second-round pick, keeping him around. Juan Thornhill's dealing with a calf injury. They're waiting for more information there as well. Denzel Ward, Kevin Stefanski says there's no setback there, even though we were all expecting him to play against Jacksonville on Sunday. Denzel spoke in a manner in which you thought he was going to return and play. Teammates spoke in a tone in which you thought he was going to return and play. Jim Schwartz spoke in a tone in which you thought he was going to return and play. Like everyone did. And then just boom, out of the middle of nowhere, Denzel Ward is not going to be available. So, but yeah, I mean, this is, it's been a season of injuries, yet here we are on December 11th, and the Cleveland Browns are the second team in the AFC North behind the Baltimore Ravens, sitting at 8-5.
I like it. Let me just go through that list too. Would you and tell me if I'm forgetting anybody? Jacob Phillips, Jed Wills, Dawson Deaton, Nick Chubb, Jakeem Grant, Jack Conklin, Rodney McLeod, Drew Forbes for a non-football injury. And and Siki or tied in Siki, right?
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, and then Michael Wood's second suspension, right? So, and Deshaun. I mean, I didn't bring up Deshaun.
Yeah, well, Jed's coming back, so we can't include him. Jed Wills is supposed to be coming back.
Right. Oh, that's right. He's on the short deal, or at least
Well, there is
the
no
new
short
kind
deal.
of.
It's just they can
But
designate.
short deal compared to what it used to be. Some of us
Right.
old timers like yourself
So
remember when you hit the IR, you were done.
yeah, so what it is I think it's 8. You're allowed 8 returns from IR in a given season, if I remember correctly. But yeah, you go on injured reserve as long as it's after the initial 53-man roster is set. That you can be designated to return after 4 weeks. And again, I believe the limit on that is you're allowed up to 8 players. Unfortunately, the Browns have like 8 guys that aren't going to be able to return from injury reserve, and that's the tough thing. So yeah, it's another victory Monday soiled by the specter of another season-ending injury. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, it was weird when he came out for the press conference today. I mean, it's just the tone right there was just. I'm bummed for him, aren't you? I mean, you said it before. You're talking about an offensive lineman that really, really, really worked hard to where he was going, and he just excelled when he got out there. And then you also wonder if his future isn't at left tackle somewhere down the road. DeJuan Jones.
Yeah, remains to be seen. Remember, Jedrick
Yeah.
Wills has the option for next year, so Jed will be the left tackle next year. So he's got at least one more year at right tackle if he's needed at that particular position. Remember, they just extended Jack Conklin too. So
All right, let's stop with the depression here. Let's talk a little bit about the playoffs, and I also want to get back into the conversation about Joe Flacco. Let Let's talk Joe just for a second. Give me your assessment of him in the second game. In this second game,
I thought he was fantastic. Going back to watching the game Monday morning, I mean, give Kevin Stefanski a little kudos for the play calling and the creativity and the aggressiveness and all that. Really can't fault Joe for the interception. I mean, what are you gonna do? Tillman got run over in a pick play, right? I
oh,
mean,
your reindeer.
it happens. There is some argument maybe Joe should have gone outside to Amari Cooper on that particular play, but that's not how that play was designed. It was designed to be a quick slant to Cedric Tillman, and Tillman ran ran into a defender. Boom, right there. And unfortunately, Joe threw to the spot that he was supposed to, and it looked like he was passing it right to the Jacksonville Jaguars. So that kind of thing happens. But no, I think Flacco's been fantastic. 5 touchdowns in 2 games. We've had quarterbacks that don't throw 5 touchdowns in a season, let alone 2 games here in Cleveland. So, and the thing that really struck me, the Browns social team after every game, they or I should say after every win, they put out Kevin's victory speech to the locker room.
Right.
And let's just put it this way. Kevin doesn't exactly inspire you to want to run through a brick wall when you listen to those. But when Joe spoke after Sunday's game, when he basically said, hey, you guys have earned the right to be here, basically acknowledging, obviously, that he wasn't, is a newcomer to the team. And
Wait a minute, doesn't that go against one game, one season?
Well, in any event,
I'm just saying.
and he, mentioned how he feels like he's a 10-year-old kid again, and is appreciative that they, are having him, tag along here, but he's not tagging along. I mean, he is going to be
He's driving.
He's going to be one of the ones driving the bus. He's either going to drive him over the bridge or into the ditch. Like that. That's just the reality of the situation. And I still maintain, Andy, that I think that Sunday's win over Jacksonville gives you the confidence. If you're a Browns fan, if you're somebody in that locker room, if you're on the coaching staff, if you're in the front office, you have the belief that this guy can help you win football games, that he's not here to manage, that he's not here to play it safe, right? he can help win football games. And for those that want to, question the legitimacy of the Browns being 8-5, I just don't know what you're smoking. They have beaten the Steelers this year. They have beaten the Colts this year. As of this conversation right now, both of those teams would be in the playoffs. They beat the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are currently leading the AFC South. They have, they've got Houston on the docket still. They beat the San Francisco 49ers this year. This isn't one of those things where you look at the Browns schedule and you look at their record and you say, well, who have they played? Who have they beaten? The Browns have played some folks and they have beaten some folks. And considering everything that they have gone through from an injury perspective, they deserve a hell of a lot of credit for being in the position that they're in. And now Joe Flacco is going to be the guy that's going to be counted on to help carry them, not just across the finish line and into the postseason, but to help them advance in the postseason.
He's Daryl Ryder. I'm Andy Baskin. It's always game day in Cleveland. We'll come back. I want to continue on with our Joe Flacco conversation, and I'm going to give you the percentages. Oh, I love those percentages. It is always game day in Cleveland. It is always game day in Cleveland. He's Daryl Ryder. I am Andy Baskin, and we are brought to you by our good friends at Smiley One and Bryant, Northeast Ohio's premier heating and cooling teammates. All right, Daryl, you have something for us too, don't you?
Yes, that little mobile sports betting thing that's going on these days in the state of Ohio.
I heard it's popular.
Yes. Yeah, well, BetQL's here to help you make the most informed bets possible. Get all of today's winners. Head to BetQL.com. Download the BetQL app where you can claim a free 3-day trial today. Head to BetQL.com/news/923 The Fan for all of those fabulous exclusive sportsbook offers.
All right, Daryl, percentages or continue on with the Flacco drama? Tiny Flacco drama.
Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention, they also beat the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, what were you thinking?
Yeah.
Come on, man. You're better than that.
Again, so let's tally that they've got 8 wins, right? So quality wins, Ravens, Jaguars, Steelers, Colts, 49ers, that's 5. Cincinnati's in the hunt, so I guess that's 6.
Sure.
So that's 6 of the 8 games that they've won, you could say, against quality teams. Tennessee can't really count them. They're not really that good this year.
Oh, good at the time, though.
And Arizona. But so you could argue, Andy, 6 of the Browns' 8 wins are quality wins this year because they are teams that are in the playoffs.
Yeah, and when the Bowl Championship Series looks at that, they're going to have to put them in the playoffs after that. It doesn't even matter if they play, right?
You would hope so. But think about that for a second. 6 of the 8 wins minus your, now down 2 starting right tackles, starting running back, quarterback, key
partridge in a pear tree,
safety,
turtle doves.
It's unbelievable. And that doesn't include the guys that are bouncing in and out of this lineup week to week. Right?
Absolutely. It is amazing what they're doing. It is. Now, you want to play the percentage game? Want to do that?
Sure.
All right. I love the percentage game, so let's talk about the percentage game because this is what makes the things fun. With 4 games to go, according to the NewYorkTimes.com interactive site, the Browns' chances of making the playoffs or how they can make the playoffs are 86%. And the likeliest playoff positions are 2% probability of a bye week, 9% chance they host a wild card game, 75% chance they are a wild card, and 14% off. But let's see what happens if they beat the Bears. How does that change things? Well, it's very easy. It puts them up to 91%, still with a 2% chance of a bye week, 15% of hosting a wild card game, 74% chance of making the wild card, and a 9% chance of being out. Let's keep rallying. Let's say they keep it going and beat the Texans after that. After beating the Bears, it is a 99% chance that they will make the playoffs, 24% chance they host a wild card game, 73% chance for the wild card, after they beat the Jets. That's what I'm saying on this one. It's still it's 100% chance they'll make the playoffs on that. 28% on a wild card, 67%. 28% they'll host a wild card. 67% they will be a wild card team. And if they run the table and win all 4 games, obviously 100% they are in the playoffs. 50% to host a wild card, 42% to just be a wild card. So 8% to have a bye week. How did you like them apples? I could do the losses, but I don't want to.
Yeah. Well, so here's the thing. The only way the Browns are going to host on Wild Card Weekend is they come back and win the AFC North.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only way to host.
Which right now with Baltimore a full 2 games in front, that seems unlikely that that's going to happen. But right now, if the playoffs were to begin as we have this conversation right now, guess what? If you haven't had enough of the Jacksonville Jaguars, I've got some news for you because the rematch in Jacksonville, Florida will be happening. The 5th-seeded Cleveland Browns and the 4th-seeded Jaguars of Duval County, Florida.
Duval.
Super Bowl or Super Wild Card Weekend. That's what we're looking at right now. So
super.
And hopefully they play it in less than 6 hours.
Yeah, that was the longest game in the history of games yesterday. Daryl, let me get into this Joe Flacco story because they put him back on the practice squad. Now, by the time you listen to this,
I have to pause you there.
Okay.
He wasn't put back on the practice squad.
Oh, he's always been on the practice.
He's always been on the practice squad, and he has been a game day elevation. Once the game is over, he reverts back to the practice squad.
So that is taken off the practice squad and bumped up.
He reverts automatically back to the practice squad.
So then is yesterday the greatest victory for a practice squad quarterback in the history of the NFL?
Probably.
I don't know of any others that I care about. So what explain this to anybody that might be a little confused and why this became such a sticky subject today.
Yeah. So the Browns first of all, what they're doing is they're managing the 53-man roster. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Joe Flacco's the 54th on the 53, but he's on the practice squad. They're basically using the practice squad here for a few weeks. They can keep him on the practice squad this week, elevate him again next week. Then or I should say next Sunday. Then next week, they have to sign him to the 53 to allow him to continue to play. You get 3 practice squad elevations. Okay. And so he's got 1 more. You automatically revert back to your practice squad. Now, after next week, after next Sunday's game against Chicago, he automatically reverts back to the practice squad. The only way he could be played in a game again is if he is signed on to the 53-man roster. Okay. So this is basically some roster manipulation being done by Andrew Berry. Okay. That's number 1. Number 2, a team can't just claim Joe Flacco off the practice squad. That's not how this works. Okay.
Okay.
He has to be signed off the practice squad to a 53, and he has to agree, right? He has to sign with said team. That's not going to happen. Okay. First of all, the Browns are the only team that's called him this year. Okay. Secondly, he's pretty happy here all of a sudden. All right. He's not going anywhere. It's procedural nonsense. But
in the land, hang on, let me just bring this up. We live in the land that Carlos Boozer tricked a blind man.
I know. I'm getting
so. And when Browns fans get leery that there could be an escape clause for Joe Flacco, I think you have to respect it and you have to answer it and just calm the nerves on this.
Yeah, and Kevin Stefanski went the "don't worry about it" route.
Right.
Which I'm not going to lie, I didn't exactly appreciate that answer. That was a bit of a D answer. Let's be honest about it. The reason this thing became a thing is because the national NFL insiders brought it up on social media. After Joe Flacco's spectacular performance against Jacksonville, he's back on the Browns practice squad. And considering how short the quarterback situation is around the NFL, somebody could swoop in and sign Joe Flacco. So that's why this became a thing on Monday.
Now, wait, but Daryl, you asked the question. That makes you the bad guy.
Right. So that I saw that, and that's why I asked Kevin Stefanski about it, because I get it. I understand it, but important for them to answer the questions, to calm people down. And Kevin, all I can do is ask the question. I can't control the responses to the questions. And, I asked Kevin, hey, what is the plan to put Joe Flacco on the 53-man roster?
And you even preface it by saying,
and I know it's an
I
Andrew
know
Berry
this is an
question,
Andrew Berry question.
but
Yes.
look, Andrew Berry doesn't do press conferences right now. Okay. So that being said, since Andrew Berry doesn't do press conferences right now, well, you're the de facto spokesman of the team. And Stefanski's response was, I'd say don't worry about it. And so I followed up with, well, why do you say that? And Stefanski then said, quote, because it'll all work out. I wouldn't be hung up on this one, end quote. Again, all I can do is ask the question. I can't control the response. Now, the correct response from Kevin should have been, it's nothing to worry about. We understand why the questions are. That's Andrew Berry's territory. He's the one that's in charge of how the roster is manipulated. But, this situation will be taken care of sooner rather than later. And there's
It's
nothing.
logistics, right?
Right. It's
You
that
could easily could just say, you know what, Daryl, great question.
Right.
I understand why it might look this way, but it's just logistics and
Right.
nobody has anything to worry about.
100%.
That's it.
Right.
That's all he had to say.
Right.
All right.
Kevin didn't
Go
want to
ahead.
say it. And then I made the fatal mistake of jumping on X and making the Carlos Boozer joke. And
You're in trouble.
yeah. And I just basically said,
You're in
hey, Carlos
trouble.
Boozer convinced Gordon Gunn that, everything was going to be okay. It'll work itself out. And then it didn't. And then I put in parentheses, I'm just kidding, but seriously. And people just jumped all over me for that and accused me of stirring the pot and creating drama that doesn't exist, and how I need to have a class and how the practice squad works. No, I don't need to have a class in how the practice squad works. I understand how it works. I have to ask the coach the question because the national folks threw the stuff against the wall. So I wanted to give Kevin, who's the de facto spokesperson of the team, and to the fans, the opportunity to calm everyone down.
So wait, you're saying that the Utah Utes aren't going to come swoop him up? Is that what you're trying to say?
Well, I don't think he has any college eligibility remaining, so I don't know that he's
got that silly looking Michigan helmet at home, though, that they wear at Delaware, don't they? Tubby Raymond. Tubby Raymond.
Oh yeah. So in summary, there really is nothing to worry about. I don't feel Joe Flacco's in the risk of leaving the Cleveland Browns. But the questions do need to be asked because procedure still needs to be done. Paperwork still needs to be signed. He needs to be put on the 53. We'll see if they use DeJuan Jones's 53-man roster spot when they put him on injured reserve this week. If they use that as the mechanism, they will have to, make room for him. And then the other thing too is they got to fill DeJuan Jones's spot too. As far as, backup lineman goes, they've got to reinforce that. Now they could get away with at least temporarily sticking with practice squad elevations for that particular position on game day for backups. But yeah, I mean, look, when stuff, and this is kind of the byproduct of the world we live in now, when the national people are stirring the pot and they get to stir it because they don't really have to deal. Adam Schefter literally just looks down at his phone and regurgitates on social media whatever he's texted. Like that. That's what Adam Schefter does all day for 24 hours a day. God bless him. I don't know if I could stare at my phone for 24 hours a day and copy paste every text I get from a player, agent, coach, or GM or whatever. But when the national guys toss stuff out and they don't have to ask the questions in press conference form to the coaches or the folks here, well, sometimes we get the shrapnel. And like I said, I have to take responsibility for being dumb enough to think I could make a joke on social media. So without being taken seriously and that I'm stirring the pot and creating drama that doesn't exist.
All right, Daryl. Speaking of drama, a couple guys speaking out, especially Patrick Mahomes and probably, I don't know, one of the best defensive guys in the league that plays for the Browns, talking about referees. We'll get to that next. It's always game day in Cleveland. It's always game day in Cleveland. Let's talk referees. And again, we are brought to you by our good friends at Smiley One and Bryant, Northeast Ohio's premier heating and cooling solution. So, Daryl, fines will probably be coming out later this week. Patrick Mahomes, it'll be interesting to see how he's fined because of his criticism of the officials, which was caught on tape when he was shaking hands. And then I don't know, did he kill him in the press conference afterwards? I can't remember.
Andy Reid did.
Andy Reid, the official. So
And
Andy
here's
Reid.
the thing. The review of that particular play, yes, it sucks. One of the greatest plays you'll ever see got wiped out because of penalty. But here's an idea. Hey, dumbass, line up on sides. Like, it's not hard. Look where the ball is. Look where your feet are. Point to the official, and don't always rely on the official to tell you how to do your job. Like, assignment, any former player, and even current player, they'll stress two words, and they both start with A: assignment and alignment. Like, those two things will drive any coach out of their mind when you don't get those things right. Because, like, that's the two easiest parts of your job. Know where you're supposed to line up and do your assignment. So I don't have any sympathy for the Chiefs. I don't have any sympathy for Andy Reid or Patrick Mahomes. Line up the way you're supposed to line up. Don't be pissed because the officials are enforcing the rules. Now, conversely, the guy that should be mad was mad and expressed his displeasure on Sunday is Myles Garrett because the officials are not enforcing the rules. He's getting his face mask manipulated. He's getting his head twisted and turned while that face mask is being manipulated. He's being put in chokeholds by tackles and guards and fullbacks and tight ends. He's being held just about on every play, but because he's so good and dominant, the officials are like, you can play through the contact. To me, the Chiefs don't have a complaint in the world.
none.
They've gotten plenty of calls in their favor over the year.
Although the week before they got rotated twice.
By the way, the dude that threw a punch got fined less for throwing a punch than David Njoku got fined for an unnecessary roughness foul. Like, so come on. Like, throwing a punch is $4,000 less than just committing a foul on the field. Get out of here. But that's what happened.
I'm wondering if Myles is going to get 25,000 on this.
He's going to get nailed. He's going to get nailed good because
but it's weird because Deontay Johnson was complaining about the referees against Jacksonville earlier this year, and he's straight out like, well, I guess the refs are on the take for this one. Basically, he accused. Hang on, let me find the exact quote because I don't want to misread that. So hang on, give me 1 second. I'll find it.
Type quickly. Google.com. Here you go. But look, Garrett has a point. He has a legitimate complaint because this is happening every week to him in games. And guess what? I would publish the photos of Garrett being held that are taken by the wire services that we use. Our station is licensed for. We have two photo wire services for photographs, and on a weekly basis, I could probably publish at least 4 pictures a week of him being held. There's one photo, and again, because it's a licensing thing. That's why I can't publish them on my platforms because the lawyers ruin all the fun. And
yes, they do.
I can be sued for copyright infringement. So that's
unless it becomes public domain in some way. But I don't know that.
But that's why, like, when I publish the practice video, it's muted because, well, they're playing music. And God forbid if there's a little background music in a video, all of a sudden you're stealing somebody's artistic performance. So, so there's legal reasons why I do my job the way I do in some respects. But there was one picture from the Bronco game where this Garrett was like being held like this by his neck. Guy had his arm around, literally choking Garrett as he's trying to hold him back. And there's a
You're like the guy doing the fake makeout in Happy Days. Did you ever see that?
no, I missed that episode.
Like he's making out with a girl in the beginning. Do you want me to show you what it looked like?
Yeah, no, I wasn't trying to do a Manti Te'o situation here. I was just trying to demonstrate what
Hang on a second. This is
photo looked
anyone
like.
that's ever seen Happy Days knows exactly what I look like.
Are you the Fonz in this situation, by the way? That's really disturbing that you've did
never
that.
seen that before?
I have, and you did that way too well. It seems like you've had a lot of practice doing that.
No,
Andy.
when we
Is
were
there
kids, we
something
used to
you
joke
wanna
around and do
tell
it because all we had was Happy Days. We only had 3 channels. But you're right. Hang on. Let me read this because I want to make sure I have the facts straight. CBS News put this out. When Deontay Johnson got fined $25,000 after the Jaguars lost, here's what he said. They was calling some stupid stuff. This is from CBSNews.com. They should get fined for calling bad, making worse, terrible calls and stuff like that. That's how mad I am. Mad is another word, but I'm not going to use it.
Right.
They cost
you're
us
the PGA version.
Yeah, I'm giving the PG version, not PGA. Peach. They cost us the game. I don't care what nobody say. They cost us the game. They wanted them to win, bro, meaning the officials.
Right.
They was calling everything in their favor. They was getting every little call, but it is what it is. He then went on to say, I thought he said one more thing. Yep, that's what he said. Oh, yeah, again, they wanted them to win. He straight out was calling the officials out, just saying it was one-sided and they were cheating.
Right.
So,
well, and I'm pulling up the Myles Garrett quotes because Myles was on one last night, and
he was on fire,
and he was 1,000% correct. I mean, these officials deserve the mushroom cloud he left on them. Quote, the officiating was a travesty today. It was honestly awful. And the fact that they're letting them get away with hands to the face, holding, false starting. I know they called a couple, but damn, they could have called it all game. And the one cost us down on the 2-yard line. I mean, respect to those guys. It's a hard job, but hell, we have a hard job as well. You can't make it harder by throwing, holding, and hands to the face out the rule book. And like I said, I got a lot of respect for those guys, but we get scrutinized for the plays we don't make. So someone has to hold them accountable for plays or calls they don't make. And they need to be under the same kind of microscope we are every single play. Then later on, he was then asked about his frustration with the officials. And he said this hack-a-shack crap got to stop. Y'all are dominant as we've seen, and we're going to let them get away with pretty much anything. It's ridiculous. You can't just let a guy put his fingers in your face mask and push your head up and grab you around the back of your collar, or he's out of position, so he's going to snatch you from the front. All that stuff we see, but we try to promote the offensive game. It's got to be called fair both ways. I don't care about any of that offense. Defense has to be held to the same standard in more ways than one. End quote.
Boom. And that, my friends, is what $25,000 sounds like.
Yeah,
I don't know if we get $25,000.
But I'll be honest with you, it is money well, because here's the thing: and I'm a believer of this. Like, I really one of the things I do really respect about Kevin Stefanski is that he does not allow his emotions to show very often. I know it doesn't make for very entertaining press conferences for fans to listen to, but his steadiness is a big reason why this team right now is where they're at, and why he's the winningest coach in the expansion era, and why he is on the cusp of being the only coach in the expansion era to take the Browns to the playoffs twice. And he's going to be the only coach in the expansion era to win double-digit games twice. Okay. So while I joke about him rarely showing any type of a personality, I really do respect how he is able to contain his emotions, because the easiest thing to do is to allow your emotions to get the best of you, to allow them to show and allow your frustration to show. And as I say that, we all at some point have the Popeye moment where you just lose your stuff because you're just fed up. You're just tired of holding it in. Okay. And Myles, I think, reached that point on Sunday. And he had been trying to be very diplomatic and hold it in and that, and just, you know what? Sometimes you just get fed up and you blow your stack and you just got to let the steam out. And, he tried to be respectful about it. He made his point. He said, hey, I respect they have a job to do, but so do we. And their job's to get the call right and call the game fair. And I don't feel like I'm being officiated fairly. And you know what? That happens in the NBA a lot too, where the officials get ripped publicly by players and coaches. And then you know what happens? The calls for those players and coaches suddenly get better for them.
Ask LeBron.
Right. Well, I wasn't going to mention any names, but
LeBron used to get, LeBron used to get killed taking it to the hole every time.
Yep.
Sometimes they would call something, sometimes they wouldn't. But, I used to be like, man, it seems like LeBron is whining all the time. But then when you sit there on the baseline and you see the times he got punched on the way up, you kind of see, wow, he's unbelievably strong because he may have got hacked and he still delivered on the
He
play.
gets the no blood, no foul treatment.
Yes, exactly right.
Right. So I totally get where Myles is coming from and in his frustration. So I'm sure that, at least 10 of his plays get sent into the league office every week by Kevin Stefanski and the coaching staff or whoever's responsible within the organization to get that feedback, from the league office. And every once in a while I get an oops, we missed it, our bad, whatever, which basically, obviously it doesn't do you any good.
Still isn't going to stop the fine though.
Yeah, but you know what?
Myles was right. There were at least 10 plays where, so
he's 100% right. The Chiefs are wrong. The Chiefs don't have anything to bitch and complain about. Myles does. And that's just where I stand on the subject.
And that's Daryl Ryder. He is a great American, just so you know that as well. That's where he stands. Daryl, thank you very much. Meredith Kane. You're welcome. You're welcome. Don't tip your waiter. Meredith Kane, thank you for an outstanding job as our producer today. And we appreciate everyone who is watching us on YouTube and listening to us on the Odyssey app. It is always game day in Cleveland.